Hello and welcome to Chamber Chat. I am Simonia Ridley Blassingame. I'm the president and CEO of the Forsyth-Monroe County Chamber of Commerce. And today I'm joined by Carrie Buckendale, who's our events and program coordinator, along with Christina Barfield. She's the account executive with Jani-King of Macon. And the reason we've invited her to join us today and have a quick conversation with you, our members, is some of you are considering reopening. We know that between Friday and Monday, the governor has relaxed some restrictions and given local businesses an opportunity to open. And so we know that some of you have questions about how best to do this. And so we've invited Christina to come and join us today and give some thoughtful suggestions on cleanliness and maybe how to maintain your spaces in this COVID-19 world. So welcome, Christina.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here with us. One of the things, and I'll show the graphic later, and I don't know if you've seen it, but I'm going to post it on my screen right now. But it's came out of the governor's office, but essentially it outlines the minimum basic operations to reopen Georgia for business. And of course, there are some things related to the employees and the workers and the clients and customers, but there's this idea about enhanced sanitation. And so who better to join us than a chamber member who knows a lot about how to enhance sanitation than Jani-King. So thank you and welcome. Can you kind of walk us through, we know that you've sort of been on the front line of this already and that your company, your organization has already been working to implement some cleanliness standards, enhanced sanitation standards during this period. Can you walk our other members and guests through what that might look like for them if they choose to reopen?
Sure, certainly. So what I've basically done is compiled kind of the top 5 tips that you guys want to consider as employers in order to keep your workplace safe and sanitary for employees as well as customers. The biggest thing, we started doing this in our office over a month ago now probably, is something called a personal protective kit. So the theory is that each employee has their own kind of sanitation kit. They're not having to share supplies. They're not having to interchange. Very simple. You've got hand sanitizer for each employee if you can get it, because obviously the less that we have to share each other's pumps and all the better. And then really the biggest thing is a mister bottle that can have a spray disinfectant in it. And it's a little bit different than just a squirt bottle in that it delivers a fine mist. That's important because if your squirt is too hard, it can actually shoot pathogens into the air. So a fine mist is very gentle and it will evenly coat all of your surface. And so, personal protective kits those are really important just to think about having it at each workstation.
Oh, no, that's an amazing tip. So when you talk about a mister bottle, so I imagine I could go somewhere like Walmart or the dollar store and find a misting bottle. And then can you walk me through what do you put inside of that that would be easily accessible? I assume it's not necessarily industrial grade.
Okay, sure. So a mister bottle, they're a little bit more difficult to find than just the typical squirt bottle. So sometimes a Walmart might not have it. Picture at the hair salon, if she's going to wet down your hair to cut it, one of those kind of, not the squirt bottle, but beauty supply stores definitely will have them for that reason. So I looked earlier on sallysbeauty.com. You can order them there, Amazon, maybe some of your chemical kind of stores. I'm not sure if a Walmart would carry it,
Okay.
especially right now. They're in high demand, but you're probably wanting to order a pretty large quantity of them. So getting them from somewhere online that's your best bet anyways.
Oh,
Or
excellent.
go to Sally or something like that.
Christina, is there anything that we need to look for specifically? Because some may or may not be able to handle chemicals. I don't know. So is there something you need to look for, or pretty much anything goes?
I got you. That's a good question. Pretty much anything goes. These are just, this is like a really thin plastic. I don't know if you can see it kind of denting when I squeeze it. And we have like a sodium dichloride kind of chemical in it, basically like a chlorine based, and it's not eating away at the plastic or anything. So they're pretty much made to be safe for that. You do want to make sure that you label it with whatever your chemical is, just to follow good OSHA protocol. So, just put a nice little label on stating what it is, but there doesn't seem to be any sort of requirements on that actual type of bottle versus the chemical.
Very good.
And I'll
Thank
talk
you.
about Miss Maria. We'll talk about chemicals too. That is very important. What is inside of the bottle, right? So we have to make sure that we're using a proper chemical in order to disinfect specifically for coronavirus. That whole concept has very much been the new kind of trend or buzzwords, so to speak. So the EPA has something called the N list, and we've given you guys the website where you can actually search online. You can find your chemical and you can search it to make sure that it has what's called a kill claim that will actually kill, kill for things like coronavirus. So this is just, plain old Lysol. And this is just a good example to kind of walk you guys through what you need to do when you're looking for a disinfectant or chemical to make sure that it's going to be strong enough to kill what we need. So there's always an EPA number on the label. And so I don't know if I can get it close enough for you guys to see, but down here by the barcode, there's an EPA registration number. So for Lysol specifically, that number is 777-99, and you can see we're just typing that right into the search bar on this link. So we're searching what's called the N list, and it pulls right up with Lysol. Now, it's not always going to have the product name of Lysol. There's a lot of things that are sold as one thing, but it really is based on what the active ingredient is. So where you see Lysol as the product name, that's a little bit misleading for this specific situation. But the important things are that it comes up when you search. That means that it is pretty much, it's guaranteed, or it has a kill claim that it will kill what's called emerging viral pathogens. So what that means is chemicals can't say that they kill COVID-19. A lot of them can't even say that they kill coronavirus or SARS coronavirus 2 because it's too new. It hasn't been out there long enough. And so your label might not necessarily say that it kills coronavirus. What you need to do is look at, have they registered with the EPA that our chemical is of a high enough grade to kill the viruses in that same family of viruses. So you can see here, it's telling you to follow the directions for norovirus. So it's not saying there's directions on our label that will tell you how to kill coronavirus. But because it kills other viruses in that family, it will work. The other important thing, this is kind of our third tip, is contact time. So you can see where it says contact time 10 minutes. Most people are not aware that just when you spray Lysol, it's not going to kill the really high level germs and viruses that are out there like coronavirus. In order to properly disinfect, not just clean, but disinfect, which means kill germs, your surface has to stay wet with that Lysol for 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, it has a kill claim that says, okay, coronavirus will be disinfected in this amount of time. But if you just spray a very fine mist and in a minute or two it's dry, you've done nothing to kill coronavirus. You've lightened the viral load, but that's not enough. And just as a citizen, that was something that I didn't realize was a factor. You think it's the same thing with hand sanitizer. There's research that says that hand sanitizer has to stay wet on your hands for 30 seconds in order to be able to kill coronavirus. A lot of people don't think about those things. You think, you just rub it in. It's the same reason why they're telling you when you wash your hands with soap and water, wash for at least 30 seconds. Sing the ABCs, that kind of thing. Because that soap, it does deactivate the virus, but it has to have enough time to be able to work and really scrub in. You also have to consider if there's dirt, if you're, when you spray something like a Lysol or whatever kind of disinfectant, there's a difference between cleaning and disinfecting. So in order to disinfect, you've got to get down to where the germs are. You can't just spray disinfectant on a layer of dust and expect it to kill the germs as well. If your desk is covered up with papers, and you spray Lysol, you're going to disinfect those papers, but you're not doing anything for the surface under it. Again, because it didn't have the dwell time, it couldn't stay wet for 10 minutes.
Oh, wow, that's a great tip. Is there anything else on this website we need to see, or can I stop sharing my screen now? Is that all the tips? Okay.
That's the important tip.
Excellent. Thank you for that walkthrough. So we'll post that link in the site when we post this video so that people can go there and check their cleaning products, like you mentioned, so that if it's not Lysol that you have or another name brand, you can look for the EPA code and do the search and look for the contact or the dwell time that you would need to use it on surfaces. So thank you for that. So that was 3 great tips, things that I've learned so far. What else do you have to share?
Sure. Another important thing is PPE, personal protective equipment, and make sure that it's there and available for your employees if they need it. That's an OSHA requirement that if they need those materials that you're going to provide them as an employer. But the biggest thing is how many people are wearing them incorrectly. And we see that, I mean, just walking through Kroger, you see a ton of people with masks, but they only cover up to here. They're not covering their nose, or they pull it down to talk somebody and then they talk to somebody and then they put it right back on. If the purpose of the mask is to stop any viral pathogens from getting into your, what we call holes, your nose, your mouth, and then you touch the outside of the mask where that where those germs could be, now your hands are contaminated, so to speak. And when you pull it down, now you're getting a great breath of the virus that's sitting right there on that mask as you're doing. So really being diligent about using the PPE, but using it properly. Same thing with gloves. You can Google, there's a proper way to take gloves off. So as you're taking them off, you pull it off of one wrist and then you kind of tuck it in and use the inside of your glove to take off the other hand. If you're taking off your gloves, but you're touching the outside, now you just made your hands dirty, which completely defeated the purpose of wearing the gloves. So proper use of PPE, don't let people walk around with it lazy. Don't let them take it off to talk to somebody and put it right back on. They're better off not having any than having those lazy kind of, habits for wearing.
Well, you're right, because then it gives a false sense of security. You're thinking, oh, everybody has on PPE, everybody's stopping the spread, so to speak, and maybe getting closer than they might in terms of social distancing. But like you said, if you pull the mask down, then you really do need to be 6 feet apart as opposed to being closer together because you were wearing your PPE properly. So thank you. That's a great tip.
Yeah, and washing your hands after if you're done and you take the mask off, or if you do have to move it or rearrange it, wash your hands. If you can't, hand sanitize, because now you've just contaminated your hands. Even though, again, you feel safe, false sense of security, you're really just helping to spread those germs at that point.
Excellent. So you mentioned you had 5 tips for us. I think that's 4. What's the final? What's the last winner?
The last one is to really just think through a diligent cleaning plan and what that looks like. One of the most important things is going to be your touch points. You want to really, at a minimum, disinfect, dwell time, we've already talked, disinfect all of your touch points about every 2 hours. The biggest thing to consider is when you disinfect an area, it is clean. You have killed, 99.99% of those germs. That's great. Now, if I'm sick and I don't know it, and I come up and I, grab your stapler or touch a doorknob or push in the back of a chair and I'm sick, I've just reinfected that surface. So there's nothing out there that has that residual effect of of disinfecting. So the more frequently that you can come through during the day and disinfect those touch points, disinfecting workspaces. That's why we have the spray bottles at our workstations twice a day at a minimum. We have to go through, we have to disinfect our keyboards, our phones, our desks, our workspaces, our doorknobs, just to make sure that if as an employee you're sick and don't know it, you're not continuing to just reinfect or recontaminate areas that you've worked so hard to clean. So people think I've got a cleaner that comes in once a week, or we're cleaning it ourselves every Friday afternoon. That's not enough. You really have to think through the entire day. What are we doing to constantly disinfect our areas?
Okay, thank you, because I was wondering about that. Like, I imagine you guys service our place of employment for sure, and you all come in once a week. And so that was my question, was what am I supposed to do in between time? Have you found that you have maybe increased the amount of visits you're doing during this period, or are you encouraging them to do what you said, create these personal cleaning stations to help bridge the time between the time that you come and visit them to do a deeper clean?
Sure. Yeah. It's been pretty neat in this whole pandemic, so to speak, that we've really gotten to be consultants in that sense. So you're not just trying to sell a service, like you guys are clients, but it all comes down to budget. I mean, there's businesses that have added a day porter, somebody that is there every day, like banks, that goes and wipes behind and disinfects behind every customer that walks in. If you can afford to do that, that obviously is the most ideal. For most businesses, something like that is not going to be practical. So we can come in once a week and we can do a good disinfecting. There's a spray disinfecting service that just sprays everything down and lets it sit. Those things are out there and available. A lot of businesses if they just did a once a week, now they want every night or 3 days a week. They're just increasing the amount of the professional cleaning that's coming in. But we really are trying to teach people that we can do our part, but as employers, you guys have to do your part to stop the spread, because we're not there all day or every night.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Well, you have answered all of my questions, and I feel a whole lot better understanding sort of this process, because in my head, I had a lot of questions about how one would do this as an employer, and I had not thought about personal cleaning stations for each employee. And so I appreciate your tips very much. Carrie, did you have any more questions for Christina?
I just want to know if you have any advice for some of the businesses we know that are opening that are semi-high volume. They're going to have a lot of touch points. So if you're having more frequent touch points, is 2 hours enough? Do you recommend behind every person, behind every 3 people? What's your recommendation for these businesses that are going to have a lot of people in there?
Sure. Yeah, that's tough, and that's really been the whole discussion all along. Ideally, the more volume that you have, the more that everything has to increase. So if it is feasible to disinfect behind every person, then that obviously is the most ideal, because the whole thing with this virus is people don't know when they have it, but yet they're spreading it. So if I come through, if I come to buy a car or go through the grocery line or whatever, go get my haircut, any kind of business, I don't know that I'm sick, or else I obviously wouldn't be going out and frequenting these places. But you guys want to protect your next customer. You want to protect your employee. So if you can come behind and wipe every single time, that would definitely be the most ideal. If it's every 30 minutes, if it's every hour. The biggest thing there, the point of having the plan in place is so that it can be something scripted, that this way you can hold your employees accountable. I expect you every 30 minutes to stop and hit the touch points in your zone. Or this person is just going to go around and make swoops hitting touch points. And, by the time they get done hitting all the touch points in their workplaces, it's time for them to start back over again, just based off of the size. Just think through what that needs to look like and how you can allocate your employees to make those changes and get into those good habits.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely, thank y'all.
So I'll let you have the closing remarks, Christina. Anything else you'd like to share with us? Thank you again for your time. I appreciate your generosity. I love the tips. I thank you for coming, preparing to share with our fellow members your expertise today. It was definitely a treat for me. So last word to you.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, thank you again. I think this was a great idea to put out there. Obviously, businesses are very torn. Do we open? Do we stay open? Do we open back up or not? And so the best that we can do is to educate you guys on the things that you need to be able to consider before you're ready to, and to make sure that it's feasible for you guys. But we really want to kind of break it down into pieces where it's not going to be scary or unmanageable. If we can get some good protocols in place, if we can make sure that we're using the right chemicals, like you said before, Ms. Simonia, to not be giving a false sense of hope. That's definitely the most important. If you guys were just cleaning yourselves before and it was just kind of a haphazard thing, it wasn't a priority, it certainly needs to be now. Of course, we'd be happy to work with you guys on that, but no matter what you're doing, you've got to make it a priority. You've got to step up your game more than you did before any of this was around.
Well, thank you. That's Can't say it any better than that. We'll share your contact information with our members. Anyone can reach out to you. I know you mentioned your consulting services as well, so we will share that with our base. So thank you again, and we appreciate you very much for your time.
Thank you, ladies. Thanks so much.